Welcome to Next Level Play Therapy, a weekly podcast dedicated to supporting the next generation of child and adolescent therapists to provide exceptional play therapy services. We'll explore all things play therapy to elevate your work with children and adolescents using the therapeutic powers of play. I'll discuss practical tips and ideas so you can provide a transformative experience for your young clients and make a real difference in their lives. So get ready to take your play therapy skills to the next level and make a lasting impact in the lives of children, adolescents, and families. Welcome to today's episode of talking about all things play therapy and expressive arts. And today we are going to talk about one of the favorite conversations, categories, topics. If you ask any play therapist, or I'll say mental health professional in general, we'll say our favorite topic, which is the reason we got into play therapy or mental health to begin with, is to write amazing documentation, right? Said no mental health therapist ever. It's actually, I think if we took a poll, most of you watching or listening today would say play therapy documentation or mental health documentation is quite possibly your least favorite task about becoming a play therapist ever. So if that's you, post in the comments. I would love to see who's here. If that's you, post yes. Not my favorite task, not my favorite thing to do. Don't like paperwork, documentation. I would love to see who's here today. So if you're watching live today, post your name in the comments, post where you're from, what population you work with. If you're watching on the replay or listening to the podcast, go ahead and post in the comments. I would love to see who's here, who's listening. And let's have a conversation about documentation, even though it's not anyone. I'm not going to say anyone ever, right? We never use always and never. There might be some people who like documentation or, don't really mind it. Most of us don't like it, and we do it because we have to. And I would fall in that category. I do it because I have to. And because I have to, I figure I might as well do it well and figure out what the point of it is, because then if I look at it that way, then I can see the value and the quality, I would say, goes up. So we have Nina from the UK. Welcome, Nina. Also, we have Cathi from Colorado, Catherine from Colorado. Play therapy with adolescents and adults. Awesome. May come back for the recording. Yes. Yeah, come back for recording. Feel free to share the information if you find this helpful, what we're talking about today. Please feel free to share it across your social media platforms. If you're watching on the live or watching on the replay, feel free to share it. If you're listening, I have some very exciting news. So I typically go live on my social media platforms, on my LinkedIn channel, and my Facebook group, which is called Play and Expressive Arts Therapy Playground. That's a Facebook group for child and adolescent therapists who want to use play therapy with their clients. And then I also have my YouTube channel, Cathi Spooner, Renewing Hearts Training. I am launching next week is International Play Therapy Week. And here in the US, through the Association for Play Therapy and Play Therapists here in the US, I would suspect outside of the US as well, we celebrate International Play Therapy Week the value and the benefit of using play therapy to help children heal. So next week, I am launching my podcast, which is called Next Level Podcast. And it will focus on all things play therapy and expressive arts. So if you're listening to the podcast, welcome. So let's get started. Today is play therapy documentation. And I 100% agree with you, Catherine. It is most definitely a much needed conversation. And I would agree with you about a whole office needs this. I used to own a group practice years and years and years ago, which is when I really started to really realize, not everybody understands this documentation thing. And I began to work with people that I supervise to help them develop the skills. And over the years, being in a supervisory kind of leadership role, and what I've come to realize is that it's not a topic we talk about. It's not something we get a lot of in graduate school. And depending on where you do your field practicum and who your supervisor is and their level of skill, you may or may not get very good support or training about documentation. And I do a lot of consultation now. And what I'm finding is, and I do live stream, so I'm always talking to people. And what I realized is this topic is really, really needed. People struggle with this topic. I would say mostly if you identify the two documentation elements that people struggle with, they're going to say progress notes and treatment plans. In my mind, though, it's a deeper conversation than that. It's a bigger, broader concept than just progress notes and treatment plans. And so that's one of the main reasons I've developed some online courses. So I'm going to talk about those more at the end of the training. So if you're interested, I have some courses, self-paced online. You can take them anytime in your time zone about documentation. So I will talk about those more and go in more depth if you're interested. And today I wanted to give an overview just to kind of lay the groundwork of thinking about documentation from, we'll call it a helicopter view. So looking at it from a broader perspective, which is going to help you with your documentation. It's going to help you write quality documentation, which will also, hopefully, the goal is also to get it done quicker. So today's topic is documentation, and that's going to include a lot of elements. So let's get started. The first thing that I think is important to think about is a concept called the golden thread analogy. I first heard this a few years ago, actually, when I was talking with one of the leadership at the Association for Play Therapy here in the US, because I was kind of lamenting about I'm an approved provider for play therapy, continuing education hours through the Association for Play Therapy. And it is a very long application. And they are very protective of the training, which totally makes sense. So I was kind of lamenting, not kind of complaining, not really, because I get it. And it was a bear to write this application. And that's when I heard this concept of golden thread analogy, really like using that analogy to tie all the elements together for this application process. But the golden thread analogy actually comes from the documentation world, using the golden thread analogy with your documentation. So what is the golden thread analogy? How many of you have heard of this concept for mental health documentation? If you heard of golden thread analogy, post that in the comments. I would love to see, because I had not, and I have been in the mental health field several decades and had not heard of this. And I fell in love with it when I heard it. So the golden thread analogy is basically kind of a metaphor, visual imagery for connecting all of your documentation together and understanding why it's important. So think about golden thread, and a golden thread sewing together all of the components of your documentation. So Catherine said, yes, she's heard of the golden thread analogy. That's awesome. So imagine a golden thread tying together your psychosocial assessment, your diagnosis, your treatment plan, your progress notes, and your discharge summary. All of these components of your documentation will be connected. So think of this. I like to think of documentation as telling your client's hero story. So imagine that you're writing a book about your hero, and your hero, you're putting it down in paper. You're documenting the hero's journey. You want to be able to see a consistent understanding of this journey from beginning to end. This is your golden thread. Your golden thread is tying this all together. And you're going to see elements in each of your documentation. So when you're writing your documentation, keep this golden thread analogy in mind. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So keep that in mind, though, as you're going to be able to see the connection. You want to see the connection between your psychosocial assessment and your diagnosis. And then, and I'm going to go into case conceptualization. If you've been following any of my previous live stream episodes or listening to some of my previous podcasts, then you probably will have heard of case conceptualization. I've talked about that a few times. If you're interested in that topic, feel free to go back there and watch some of those previous episodes or listen to some of those previous episodes. Your case conceptualization is going to influence your treatment plan, and your treatment plan is going to influence your progress notes. So you should be able to tie all of those together. Which brings me to my next point, which is, what is case conceptualization and why does it matter? So it's really all about your case conceptualization and your mindset about that. So if we go back to that analogy of your hero's journey, you want to see that foundation of who your hero is and their journey, the ups and downs of their journey. Your case conceptualization is essentially how you identify what exactly is the problem and why is it happening. So your case conceptualization uses all of that information that you gathered for your psychosocial assessment. Your psychosocial assessment matters. One of the things that I find over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, when people get lost, when play therapists, child and adolescent therapists, mental health professionals, when you get lost, it's typically because one of two reasons. One, which is usually what I find, is you didn't really take the time to do a really thorough assessment, psychosocial assessment at the very least, to find out what exactly is going on and why is it happening. Or you did one and you just did it to check off a box and didn't really recognize and utilize the benefit of being really thorough. A lot of times we think it's just for checking off the box. The thing is, your psychosocial assessment is what helps with your case conceptualization. If you don't do your psychosocial assessment, you can't do your case conceptualization. Your case conceptualization is taking all of that information that you gathered to figure out what's going on and why is it happening. It's really the foundation of helping you understand how you can help your clients overcome whatever it is that's going on in their life that brings them to your playroom. And here's the thing. Your case conceptualization is going to be heavily influenced by your play therapy theoretical model. So if we go back to the analogy, you're writing your hero story and your documentation is the foundation of this story, then the language that you write your story in will be your play therapy theoretical model. For example, here's another analogy to think of your play therapy theoretical model and how it plays a big role in the work that you're providing as it relates to your documentation of that work, which is, imagine you're writing this story and imagine you're writing your story in Spanish. Then it's going to use the language, it's going to use the nuances, because some of the words in Spanish are different than words in another language like English. So you're going to have to figure out the nuances of the words and the language you're using in order to tell your story. When you think about your case conceptualization, it's heavily influenced by your theoretical model because that's going to explain what's happening. So, for example, so that's kind of the overview of it. If you're interested, I have an entire course on getting grounded in play therapy case conceptualization. Here's the thing. If you find yourself getting lost, it's probably because you didn't do that initial case conceptualization, because a lot of times people will start getting lost and you kind of don't know why you're getting lost. Whereas if you did some really solid case conceptualization using a theoretical model, then that can help you get back on track. Like, I can't tell you, I've been in the mental health field like 30 years now. I still get lost. It doesn't matter how seasoned or inexperienced you are. We all get lost. If you're new to the profession, you're probably going to get lost more. And if you really start off with learning how to get good, solid case conceptualization skills in place, it's going to save you a lot of time later on. So in the course, we go deep dive in, questions to ask, why to ask them, how to walk through and create a culturally competent, culturally relevant case conceptualization, and how you're going to use that to help your clients. And it really makes a difference when you do that. So how does case conceptualization actually help you with your documentation, right? You want to keep your case conceptualization in mind when you're writing your client's story. What's the premise of the story? What's going on in the story? What language are you using for your story? So when you're creating treatment plans and progress notes, you're keeping in mind the case conceptualization. And for example, when you write your progress notes, then your theory model is going to explain what's happening and why it's happening. You're also going to use that language in your progress notes, which is, here's a little tip. One of the things that I hear regularly is, how do I make my progress notes sound like we're doing more than just playing, right? Like today we played Jenga. Well, how does that sound therapeutic and professional? This is where your play therapy model comes in. This is where your case conceptualization comes in, because you're going to use all of that in the language that you use and what you write in your progress notes. It also adds a level of professionalism in your documentation. So the last thing, just kind of bringing this all together for your documentation. So we're bringing it all together, writing your treatment plans and your progress notes. So your case conceptualization is, why is the problem happening and what is sustaining this problem? Your play therapy model is the solution to the problem. Also helps to understand why the problem is happening. Your play therapy theoretical model is going to dictate what you're doing in the sessions. This is where your treatment plan comes in, because your treatment plan is what you're going to create with your clients or their parents that kind of maps out what needs to happen. It's really challenging to write a treatment plan if you haven't really fully identified what the problem is and why it's happening, because your treatment plan is going to be the solution to those problems. And so the language that you use is heavily dependent on your play therapy theoretical model. And you're going to use that language when you write your progress notes, so when you write your treatment plans, when you create them, and when you write your progress notes, because your progress notes tell the story of how your client is getting better, how they're progressing through all the stages of the change process. When you write your treatment plan, there are certain ways to write that. And again, I have a course for this one. It's called Getting Grounded in Play Therapy Treatment Planning. That one also walks you step by step through the process. It's going to help you know what to put in your treatment plan. How do you write your treatment plans so that they meet most agency and insurance requirements? How do you walk through that treatment planning process and write out a treatment plan that is actually going to be useful, that you can refer to, that's going to help you, again, when you get lost in process. And we all do. This is another way to also kind of help you keep on track. Or maybe you realize, oh, I kind of missed it in the beginning. You could just rewrite the treatment plan. You're going to be referring to it all the time. Maybe you accomplished something and now you're going to write a new one. Actually, your treatment plan can be really, really useful. And when you're keeping all of these things in mind, when you're keeping this golden thread analogy in mind, and you have your solid case conceptualization and you have a solid treatment plan, your progress notes are going to have components of that, which is what's going to help them make sense and document what's going on. So, and again, I have a course for this one. It's a brand new course that just came out, Getting Grounded in Play Therapy Progress Notes. So that one also walks you step by step through the process using play therapy theoretical model. So it's kind of, how do you take the theory and apply it in practical application? So each one of those I'll talk a little bit more about if you're interested. So that is it for today. So let me do a little recap on today. First and foremost, golden thread analogy. Keep in mind, the golden thread is that imagery that kind of sews all the components of your documentation together. You should be able to see similar language and elements throughout your documentation, from your psychosocial assessment, which influences your diagnosis and your treatment plan. And then your progress notes are going to be showing how your clients progress through all of those things that you identified in your psychosocial assessment and your treatment plan. So that gold, and when you struggle with some language, not sure what to write, just look back to those and it'll kind of get you back on track. So it's a really good way to keep in mind what to write when you're feeling a little overwhelmed and confused. Second thing you want to think about is really do your case conceptualization. It is going to influence your other documentation. This is the solid foundation that you need, not only to help get good results, it also helps you with your documentation, knowing what to write and where you're headed. And you can use some of that information to show progress. You're definitely going to use that information to help write your treatment plans, because your case conceptualization, it identifies the problem and why it's happening. Your treatment plan is the solution. That is how you're going to map out and help your client overcome the problem that's going on. The third thing you want to think about is bringing it all together with your treatment plans and your progress notes. So your treatment plans are going to be influenced by your case conceptualization, using some of that language, and your progress notes are going to use the language and be tied to your treatment plan. So if you take the time to do the documentation in the beginning, it will actually help you stay on track with your documentation throughout your client's treatment history. So that is it for today. Again, if you found this information helpful, please like and share it across your social media platforms. Leave a comment. What was helpful for you? What are you implementing based on what we've talked about today? Love to hear that in the comments. And if you want to take a deeper dive, if you want some more support that's going to help you walk through creating a strong case conceptualization, your case conceptualization is really what helps you navigate all of the ups and downs of the treatment process, because you have a better idea of what's going on and why is it happening. So when you get lost in the process, you can kind of go back to your treatment, your case conceptualization, kind of reminding yourself, okay, what's the problem and why is this happening? Am I on track? Did I get off track? Did we go down a rabbit hole? Do I need to come back to the core issues that are going to help get that positive outcome that we want for our clients? Your case conceptualization is key. And so getting grounded in play therapy case conceptualization is an online course that is self-paced. There are different pre-recorded video modules with activities. I walk you through your case conceptualization using 4 different play therapy models so that you can take what you have gathered and then how would you understand that using your play therapy theoretical model. I also walk you through questions to ask, why you need to ask them, why they make such a difference. One of the things that I find over and over and over and over when I'm doing supervision and consultation, people don't ask a lot of questions. And I always say the devil is in the details. If you really want to get a sense of what's going on, you really need to be detailed. And so that's one of the things I did in the course, is to walk through all the types of questions to ask and why you need to ask them. And then how do you take all of that information and create? I'll walk you step by step through that process, and the role of culture. How do you make sure you take that into consideration? The other thing, another course that I have, if maybe you have that, or maybe you or feel pretty confident about that, or maybe you're mostly struggling with writing treatment plans, I have another course, Getting Grounded, Writing Play Therapy Treatment Plans, which again, I kind of review the case conceptualization and then walk you through how to write treatment goals that matter, treatment goals that will help you make a difference, creating that map, getting that buy-in with clients and parents, for them to understand what's going on and what are you working on in that process. Getting Grounded in Play Therapy Treatment Plans is another self-paced course with pre-recorded modules and activities that will walk you through that process. And then my newest course, which is Getting Grounded in Play Therapy Progress Notes. How do you take all of that information from your case conceptualization and your treatment plan? And then how do you write a progress note? What do you look for in the sessions? How do you identify themes? How do you take that information and then put it in a progress note that's concise and doesn't take 97,000 hours, just a slight exaggeration, to write these progress notes? And how do you write these progress notes that actually sound professional and don't sound like you're playing for 45 minutes to an hour? If you're interested, these courses, you can find them on my website. My website is rhplaytherapytraining.com/courses. You'll find all 3 courses there: Getting Grounded in Play Therapy Case Conceptualization, Getting Grounded in Play Therapy Treatment Plans, and Getting Grounded in Play Therapy Progress Notes. I would highly recommend getting all 3, but if you can only start with one at a time, I would start with case conceptualization and then kind of go through the process as you're able to. If you have any questions, honestly, feel free to message me. I'm happy to answer those. And also in the comments, you'll see my amazing virtual assistant, Brill, has posted posted links in the comments for you to pop over there, check out those courses. And I will see you next week. All right? Bye for now. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Next Level Play Therapy. I hope you found the discussion valuable and gained new insights and ideas to support your work helping children, adolescents, and families heal. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback helps to improve and reach more people who can benefit from this information. Remember, play therapy is a powerful tool for healing and growth. Whether you're a new play therapist or experienced, I encourage you to continue your learning journey to unlock the potential of play in your own work and relationships. If you have any questions or topic suggestions for future episodes, I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on social media and visit my website at Renewing Hearts Play Therapy Training to stay updated on upcoming episodes, trainings, and resources. Thank you once again for listening to Next Level Play Therapy. Until next time, keep playing, learning, and growing.